What about Neanderthal? I tend to think of an uncivilized, brutish man or woman dressed in like a fur loincloth and possessing pretty limited intelligence. Many believe, and probably people in here believe, that they consumed everything they could get their hands immediately on. But the way in which we view Neanderthals and cavemen are pretty far off, and through this speech you might be able to see that their survival was not as hand-to-mouth as once thought. Although they may not have had food pantries or grocery stores like us, cavemen actually stocked up on food when they could. In fact, they actually stored bones of the animals they killed, and these bones were packed with fatty, nutrient-rich, and tasty marrow, which they then later cracked open to eat. I don't know about you guys, but I check the news like basically every day on my phone. And when I came across an article talking about this subject, I was amazed at how scientists were able to discover that cavemen stocked up on food and actually thought about their future needs. So today I'm going to examine how the researchers came to their conclusion and what exactly that means. So, in order to fully examine how the earliest humans stored food, New York Times reported that a team of scientists began examining cut marks on almost 82,000 animal fragments, mainly deer, in the Kesem Cave in Israel. And they noticed unusual heavy chop marks on the ends of some leg bones known as metapodials. And metapodials are parts of the bone that have little to no meat on them or fat, so researchers were pretty confused as to why cavemen would go to such lengths as to cutting off the skin for them. So they suspected that these chop marks were performed later in order to remove the dried skin that had been wrapped around the bones, and that was to preserve the marrow for future meals. So, in order to test their hypothesis, they acquired fresh deer bones that were recently killed, and they wrapped the bones in skin and then stored them in conditions similar to the Kesem Cave. And then weeks later, they sliced off the skin, cracked open the bones, and then compared the cut marks to those they found in the cave. According to the article in Live Science, they discovered that preserving the bone along with the skin for a long period of time enabled early humans to break the bone when necessary and eat the still nutritious bone marrow. It was almost like a can of soup, like you could like slurp it down. Cavemen deliberately accumulated bones for later consumption, and that kind of shows their concern for future needs. And these discoveries show the signs in changes of the way in which the earliest human beings behaved. So how we view prehistoric humans as compared to how they really behaved differ pretty greatly. Prehistoric humans were much smarter than we actually think they were. They stored food for later, and they even grilled fresh meat over campfires like us. We now know that they thought about their future, and they planned for long-term events. They even prepared meals with much more skill than we could have ever imagined.